Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you again for joining us today at the 2024 Sloan Sports Analytic Conference. My name is Ophir, and I am an first year as MBA student at MIT Sloan. We have a great panel today it's my pleasure to introduce. Level Up, Analyzing the Influence of Brands on the Esports Ecosystem. Our panelists today are Doug Watson, Head of Business Strategy of Global Esports at Riot Game; Andrew Lillian, Vice President of Global Sponsorships at MasterCard; Joe Mark, CEO at T1 Entertainment and Sports. Our panel will be moderated by Brian Millman, Vice President of Properties and Brand Strategy at CSM Sports and Entertainment. The panel will run for 45 minutes, and we will leave 10 minutes for questions at the end. You can submit questions through the Cadence app. You should scroll down and go to the panel, and you will find the place to put questions in the event. I will screen the questions and put them in to Brian to ask. And that's it, Brian. I hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. First and foremost, tremendous conference thus far. A lot of great speakers. I think we're all thrilled to be up here. Kudos to the students of MIT for putting this on. It's regularly one of the best in the business. So enough about me and this. It's really about them and talking about the wonderful world of esports, the brands that support it, grow it, monetize it, and how they come about. I think we're at an interesting point in the esports ecosystem, in the history and timeline of this, so hopefully there's some insights. And if not, the person in the Cloud9 jersey, we expect a lot of questions from you. Joe may have some thoughts on your jersey. So first and foremost, we're here to talk about partnerships, right? Brand partnerships, what they bring and what they do. Like, my personal belief is that any partnership, there's a value exchange, right? So the first question that we really want to go into is like, okay, why? Why partnerships? Why esports? What is the power behind this, and what is the value exchange that brands typically see? We have someone from the publisher side, the team side, and a buyer, so it should be an interesting conversation. Joe, why don't you kind of kick us off? Why esports?
I think the biggest thing with esports is it's a much younger demographic. It's a highly engaged demographic. It's kind of the future of where the buyers are going to be. You look at traditional sports and you look at the comparative ages of what their average fan is versus esports. And while they have probably significantly more buying power currently, at some point the esports fandom is going to catch up to their buying power. They're going to a lot of tech-heavy careers. They're very into academics. And I think there's an opportunity for buyers like MasterCard and other partners to get through to the younger demographic and ingrain themselves to that fan early on. I think you see esports fandom and you see a Cloud9 jersey in the stands, like you pick a team and you typically go with it. Sometimes in certain sports you swap for the different players, but for the most part you try to partner with that brand as a fan and kind of go along that journey with them. And I think the unique aspect of partnering with the esports team versus the publishers, on the team level, you get access to the players, right? You get to partner with a faker, and that can go a long way for brand.
I've never heard.
Me either. I don't know.
But Andrew, like he talks about like a different younger fan. You have partnerships with the PGA Tour. You have partnerships with a number of like big time soccer. European football, right? Why esports? You guys are one of the biggest in the non-endemic game.
Yeah, I mean, we're at an analytics conference, and 532 million unique people watched esports regularly last year. There were 20 billion hours watched on Twitch. 90% of Gen Z consider themselves to be a gamer, right? So these are powerful stats, and it's a very unique audience. We do sponsor a lot of traditional sports, and there's not a lot of crossover. It's a very unique audience. Our League of Legends audience, many of them don't watch traditional sports. And it's just a great audience to tap into. MasterCard's brand strategy has always been connecting people to their passions, and gaming is certainly one of those core passions.
Now, you use two different phrases there. That's interesting. I'd love Doug to kind of like double click a little bit deeper. gaming esports, right? How do you guys, from a Riot perspective, right? Because you have both, right? How do you guys differentiate? How do you convert between the two? And then from follow-up, MasterCard teeing you up in a little bit, like how do you play into both? Because there is a difference.
Definitely. So games are a thing that, again, are here to bring us joy, to have a way of being able to engage and to explore. And there's a lot of different types of games out in the world. Esports is organized play, much like traditional sports. It's when we take gaming as, again, that sport at the center of it, that organizational play goes around. And so for us, when we look at gaming versus esports, we look at first, how do we create great games? Because the great games are at the core of everything. Again, the same thing goes with traditional sports too. If you have a sport that people aren't actually having fun playing or want to play with, like, you're not going to have anyone that's actually going to engage with it. So for us, we start with how do we create the great game? And then two, how do we create a great ecosystem around that game where that player wants to go more into the IP, to immerse themselves into the community. And with that, we can start taking a look at, where does competitive play rank? Is that organized play that creates the pinnacle moments, a thing that's necessary for that game, that the players of that game are going to love and that they're going to want to be a part of for years and years to come? And if so, at that point we start saying, how can we invest into it and to create generational fandom so that we have players that will be here 10, 20 years later, that have their kids start playing the game, and that their kids then also want to go pro because they've grown up with this type of legacy in the household that inspires them, and that makes it sort of an aspirational thing to do.
Do you guys look at it differently, one and the same?
Yeah, I mean, they're the biggest misconception in the industry that they are the same, and they are different, right? So gaming is everything from a hardcore gamer to a casual gamer who's playing games for the love of the game or to social interact with their friends. Esports brings a competitive element to it. It's competition, it's watching your favorite team, it's watching your favorite player. MasterCard is fortunate enough to be involved in both, right? In the gaming side of it, we look at it from a payment services standpoint. We recently launched an Xbox branded credit card. We did a partnership with Xolo, which is a points payment system. We have 15 passion cards globally using the League of Legends IP. So from a payments and services side, it's really important. From an esports side, it drives scale. It's a great media buy. We also are being able to connect our consumers to some of the biggest experiences in the world. You could show up at an esports event just past November in Korea, 30,000 people filled the baseball stadium. Same baseball stadium the Dodgers and Padres are opening up this year's season at. And we're able to offer priceless experiences to our customers, like playtest experiences. They get a chance to go on the main stage, play a 5v5 League of Legends match in the same stage the pros are. Behind the scenes looks at like A-list opening ceremonies artists. So they're definitely complementary pieces from MasterCard, and they both work really well.
Yeah. Esports becomes essentially a platform that you can use that's around the game that engages the community in a different way. So from like a partnership perspective, you can look at engaging with the game, having either integrations, leveraging of the IP, and other types of moments. The sport is, again, a platform where the content, the pros, the teams, and these other faces are able to create a different form of emotional connection, a different way of experiencing it. Similar to also like how we use music and other forms of entertainment around our game titles. All those different parts of an ecosystem that allow that player at the middle to start engaging with our content, to find the love of what they want from it, and then again to find the great brand partners that are able to elevate that experience to the next level and have again a connection there as well.
Yeah, but at some point the fractionality of an esports consumer and a gamer needs to merge closer towards an even point, right? Like you look at an esports fan might be 10% of your total player base. How do you get the 90% to come over and be an esports fan? Because that helps the team's ecosystem, that helps us make money or not lose a lot of money. Like it helps people to keep investing in these teams because we all believe in it. But at some point, we're not going to have the traditional media rights like the NFL has that makes up, from day one, they're in the black right away. Esports teams are chasing it year in and year out, and hopefully they win the big tournament. But you have to make up for that at some point, and eyeballs are the biggest part of that.
So to put you guys on the spot here, right? We're not going to say anything too controversial, just moderately, right? We talked about the size of prize with gaming being much broader, much bigger, right? You said 10%, loosely of fans might be esports fans. Where's the responsibility? Where's the responsibility to bring that to the center point like you talked about? Is it on the publisher side, the team side? Is it influencers? Is it everything? And how do you guys like navigate that onus? Because everyone wants to go in that same direction to grow the size of pies for the esports ecosystem.
I mean, it's definitely a hand in glove scenario with the teams, publishers, and kind of the ecosystem in general. Influencers and streamers have a really big part because they get the casual fan to watch. Pro sports teams, pro esports teams, like with us at T1 and Faker, our job is to keep winning, to create that narrative, to get people excited about someone dominating the sport.
You guys win?
Yeah.
Okay.
We like to win. Winning's good.
Didn't know that.
And then with the publisher, it's on them they have all the data, they have all the information, they know who's watching, who's not, and working with that collective community, as best they can to help kind of move the needle, whether that's building things in client or doing events and tutorials or just trying to find different ways to engage someone that's not necessarily watching esports.
Awesome.
I think what's also interesting though is the value of great partners in the space. Because like to start, you're right. Like it's a full ecosystem that fuels it, right? From the game being a great game that creates a great sport, that enables teams to be there, that puts stars at the center, that allows them to be elevated, and you can have that level of greatness in the key moments that people have nostalgia about. But then you also have, again, really great brand partners that can come in and help make it so that there's even more stickiness to it. So like, example of these two guys on the stage here working together with Worlds and building around T1 and having like a great type of product offering associated to both. I think what that does, it just makes it even more special and also adds a level of legitimacy as well to the sports, which is something that fans really appreciate. And it's, I think, a really key differentiator in some of the things that we've done is have brand partners that really understand the space, really love it, have a passion for it and over serving the audience. And it, again, makes the players want to be more committed to this. And again, allows them to also become the strongest advocates, because that advocacy is really what's going to lead to the 10% becoming 20%, becoming 40%, becoming 80% of the player base wanting to love and be there.
Yeah, so they look at brands to be more than just a logo slap, more than just a media buy, right? And he mentioned a partnership we did T1 at the World. So they're the most famous team in League of Legends. We were in Korea and we did a limited edition capsule collection, a merch collection with T1 in Korea, and we put it on priceless.com, and within 48 hours it was obviously sold out. But it's kind of doing intimate things for the fans. In Korea at the League of Legends World Championships, we brought a famous Korean street artist to an activation, and she customized people's shoes. People could bring their sneakers and customize them in their favorite colors and stuff. And it's moments like that are more than just your logo or your media in the broadcast, and I think that's resonated with the fan base.
So we talked at a high level and then went a little bit deeper about T1 and MasterCard. Okay, you're not allowed to talk about any of your partners. You're not allowed to talk about MasterCard, and you're not allowed to talk about any of your partners. What brands out there are doing it well, right? You've already talked at a bit high level, but like, who's doing it well besides MasterCard obviously doing well and all of your partners? Like, who's really embracing the gaming and esports ecosystem?
You want me to say a brand name, or you want me to just talk in hyperbole?
No. Literally, like Chipotle or whoever else is like.
I think in America, I think the QSRs, you see Tostinos, you see a lot of like Chipotles of the world. I think they've done a really good job of kind of going where their consumer is and integrating very well. In Asia, it's a bit different because sponsorships, like we know in the U.S., it was a foreign concept in terms of how you would build a partnership package. A lot of it back in the day was, in-kind trade for peripherals and just a logo slap on a jersey. And over the past 5 years, it's really become a multifaceted, ingrained piece, driving content, jerseys, collaborations, fan meetups. But I think a lot of the food companies in esports have done a really good job. The beverage companies, especially, have done really well, kind of going where their consumers are.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen it from outsiders' perspective. You look at like kind of Chipotle, right? You mentioned Tostinos has really kind of like pushed into the FGC space, leaning in and embracing kind of Evo, probably undervalued property, and embraced it, right? They didn't try and put their spin on it. They just heard the fans and provided the value that the fans, kind of wanted. So you talked about a change over the last 5 years. It used to be logo slaps. It used to be like, just put my logo on the jersey. What drove that change? Was it more sophisticated buyers like MasterCard, or, Doug, from your perspective, was it, the need to evolve to match kind of revenue expectations of the ecosystem?
I think it was the professionalization of esports. When all the VC money started pouring in 2017, 2018, and teams could start commanding higher values in dollars for these partnerships, there had to be some sort of standardized metrics for evaluating these partnerships. So a lot of companies came on. In TV, obviously you have Nielsen, right? So, MasterCards of the world are used to getting these big analytics reports saying, did they get the ROI on their partnerships? So I think you started seeing teams really making an effort concertedly, not just, we have 1 million followers on social media, so if we put a post, everyone's going to see it, because that's not necessarily true. So I think the professionalization of esports in terms of, it's been around for 20 plus years, but when all that money started pouring in, you started having to make decisions more similar to how traditional sports leagues were doing it, because teams were franchising and stuff like that. And we can talk about whether franchise is good or bad, but you had to start changing the way you were doing business in order to accommodate the non-endemic partners coming into the space.
Yeah, I mean, MasterCard has definitely one of our goals has been to be a lifestyle brand. And, Brand Z has us, I think, as number 9 out of 10 globally from a brand recognition standpoint. I think we're number 7 in the US. And gaming and esports have certainly contributed to that mightily. MasterCard is, a B2B2C company, right? Yep. So our direct partners are our issuer partners, right? So they've come to us looking for programs to reach Gen Z, reach millennials, and esports and gaming really affords that, right? And a lot of what we do with Riot goes deeper into just the esports. We're able to offer in-game digital goods to our customers, which in turn really benefit the player. I mean, Riot games are all free-to-play games, right? And a lot of the in-game stuff, the hex text, the skins you buy in the game are really very valuable, and it creates really a intimate connection with the end user. I think that's something we're proud of.
You mentioned interesting dynamic, right? MasterCard, you don't issue your own credit cards, but how hard is it to get these issuers? Whether it's Citibank or Barclays or anyone else who you guys have relationships to be like, yeah, I'm going to do some programming around video games, right? Is that a mental hurdle that's kind of like hard to overcome?
I think when you take one of them to a global event, it changes their tune a little bit, right? We were just in Korea, we hosted a large Japanese issuer, we hosted a local Korean issuer, we took them to the games, and you see the passion, you see the fans. I mean, it's on the level of a Super Bowl, it's on the level of a World Cup, some of these events. So it's very exciting once they kind of see it. You really have to see it in person, I believe, to truly understand the magnitude of these events.
That might be only a U.S. problem. It's a little different in Korea, Joe?
No, I mean, the U.S. does a great job with the big tentpole events. I mean, we played Worlds in 2022, and San Francisco was rocking, New York was rocking, Atlanta. I think you get down to versus the amount of regular season games you're playing, it's a lot to take in. Just like in traditional sports, I mean, hockey's 82 games, it's a long season. But from a tentpole perspective, Riot does a really good job of making these spectacles, right? And I think everything that's happening, and for me last year was like a complete blur. Like I tried to do everything the opposite of what we did in 2022, but seeing the fans line up outside, the music spectacle with the show there, which our players were like dying to watch. They actually ended up watching it later because they were under the stage, but they do a really good job of making it feel special. And filling up a baseball stadium is a big deal. What happened in 2017 in China was awesome. Like they're constantly trying to level up the experience so that when you do take someone, a partner to an esports event, it feels big.
Yeah, they filled up the Forum in Los Angeles where the Lakers used to play, like 15,000 fans for the Valorant World Championships. And then the Chase Center in San Francisco in 2022 had like 19,000 fans for the League of Legends World. So
and they get in there early.
They show up on the. If you tell them it opens at 3:30, I think all 19,000 showed up at 3:30, and they weren't. Yeah. They had like 2 doors open, so they learned their lesson.
And there's a little Nas X concert in it for them too. So.
Yeah, that event I think sold out actually faster than any of the Golden State Warriors games that year too, including playoffs, which was pretty impressive. But I think what you guys both hit on that I really love is the thing that's been really key to us from a Riot perspective is educating people that this is a different audience, what their entertainment needs are, how passionate they are, and having the moments where we can really showcase that. And events like Worlds and Valorant Champions are kind of key to those things, because it's really hard to otherwise understand this and connect. It can be a different world. And even, again, as Brian was kind of joking at, it's a different world from Korea to China to Europe to Brazil to the US. All of these are very different markets with different audiences that have a love and passion for the game and for the sport and the competition. But we need to kind of cater the competition and the entertainment around it to those audiences, and then for the brands to be able to educate them, because it's really key not only for them to believe and want to be there, but also to know who these fans are so that they can have a really strong connection. And like from a Riot perspective, you know, a couple of years back, you look at the number of sponsors and partners that we had across the space, it was none. Like it was very minimal, and it was intentional. We did not want to bring brands in that didn't understand who we were and how to treat this audience. It's really core to our DNA about what we think about players. And it takes brands like MasterCard to come in and like really want to, again, build out the lifestyle around the player and to invest into those moments to really uplift the total ecosystem for it to really stand out. And that's what we look at. And the more that you do that, the more other brands take notice, and the more that it actually leads into, again, a really healthier ecosystem where the players themselves like buy into it and they love it because they know that they're getting treated well by it.
Super interesting. So Joe brought it up earlier about the role of VCs. If you kind of follow the industry right now, it is like 23 degrees out here in Boston, but it's somewhat of a esports winter. Is that BS? Is that true? Is that, you know, where do you guys see, and like, if we were to tell the crowd right now, is this a buy stock, or are you kind of sitting on it? What are your thoughts? And we're completely unbiased on this panel.
Never time the market.
No, I definitely think esports winter is real. I think the level to which it's a winner, it depends on the team. I think, you know, when all the money came pouring in, you know, a lot of bad investments were made, and it only because money went poured towards salaries. It didn't go towards building brands or building sustainable businesses, right? They went to houses and, you know, chains and cars and hype stuff, and that works, but it doesn't work long term. A lot of people made good money. A lot of, you know, if you look at Fortnite, which was a great marketing tool with the World Cup and made a lot of people rich, but you fast forward to now, and if you don't have something that you can hang your hat on, you know, this is why we moved everything to Korea, which is why we started up 3 different businesses, because esports alone is not gonna pay the bills. Most esports teams are probably in the red, so you need to have the ability to do something else. You know, we made a concerted effort when we got to Korea in 2019 to not just put Faker out there and make everything about it. We were doing a logo brand change from SKT21 to T1. Like, we had to navigate those waters, and, you know, I think you're seeing a lot of mergers or sales in the past few years, or teams just folding. And I think that to build a sustainable ecosystem, you know, a lot of the bigger teams have survived it, and they have that fandom. And I think if you have that fandom at your core level, you can survive some of these kind of waves. And this is not the first esports winter. There's, you know, when money dries up or TOs don't pay, you know, it can be a problem. But I think the teams that really navigated esports winter kind of battened down the hatches, you know, tightened up how many games they're operating in. I made the mistake of thinking I needed to be in 10 different games, and, you know, the ecosystems weren't sustainable, which is why we picked Riot Games. I mean, I would love to be in Counter-Strike, but I can't go buy a $5 million roster and maybe I, you know, don't lose 10 million. So you really have to kind of pick and choose where you go. And I think that, you know, it's starting to come out of that now. And you see, you know, all the brands were pulling out of partnerships late 2022. They were slowly coming back in 2023. And I think, you know, where we are now in terms of the trajectory, 2024 and beyond, I think we're in a much healthier place than we were 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were the first non-endemic global partner of Riot, and League of Legends has been around since 2011. We joined in 2018, so we've been in it for 6 years. We're in it for the long haul. We're very careful about, you know, where we sponsor. Right now, we're a League of Legends esports sponsor and a Valorant sponsor. If you combine those two properties, we actually reach 90% of the addressable esports market between those two genres, which is very interesting in esports or in gaming in general, where gamers are typically very focused on certain genres. You may be a hardcore NBA fan, but maybe you're not a hockey fan. Similar trajectory in esports. You're a fan of a MOBA game, but maybe you're not a fan of an FPS game. And so it's great to kind of, diversify a little bit about what we're sponsoring. But, Riot's done an amazing job. I mean, Doug can go on about, just the longevity and the credibility of their franchises, something we've always been proud to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've seen from the CSM perspective as we consult with clients is the fandom actually hasn't changed, right? Maybe some investment's gone down, but fandom is level, if not increasing, and the cyclical nature of esports and games, as different games come in and come out, like Overwatch is maybe trending down, but fandom hasn't changed. So I think that's, as we view it, is one of the data points that we look at as like, yes, this is still buy stock, and maybe you can get a little bit more value. Joe doesn't want to hear this because there aren't as many sponsors, but those that maintain can get with those teams that do have a fandom and kind of go from there.
I think the key is that you're seeing a maturing of an ecosystem, right? Yep. Like if we look at the length of time that esports has been around versus traditional sports, like it's still, I think I've said this last year too, like it's in its infancy. And to Joe's point, you have a space where you're investing and how you're investing and what you're trying to do has still really been in like the R&D phase, right? And in some cases, it's been done wisely, some cases not so wisely. And I think right now what you're seeing is a correction in the ecosystem about where and how you invest in order to create that level of fandom, to create the connections that you're expecting that you can build a business against. And beyond that, the fandom's not changing. There are new titles and other games out there, and some of them are becoming esports, and some of those are bringing in different demographics and audiences. And so you do have to keep your finger on the pulse as to where you're going to be reaching the audiences that make the most sense. But the fandom isn't going away. And even I can tell you, like from the viewership perspective, like this last Worlds is the most watched Worlds. Valorant Champions was our largest one yet. Our regional leagues this year are showing double-digit percentage growth year over year for viewership. Like there's extremely positive engagement signs that we're seeing. So what it is really the ecosystem around it is resetting on aspects that I think are going to make it honestly a lot healthier in the long term. Is it painful right now? In some cases, yes. But I think, again, it's making us have to be more resilient in building a better base for all this to grow long term.
Plus, Riot's out there collecting infinity stones with leagues, the NFL, and Major League Baseball is Valorant. And then you have Project L, which will be soccer, which will be your biggest game. And you guys get to smile about that. But like, the fighting game is the underserved community that can take it over. And as long as you guys keep it grassroots, like don't put it in like where the fans can't huddle around the guys actually playing or girls actually playing. Like make it fun, make it like the same, the FGC that we all know.
Yeah. I'm going to use Brian's favorite word for a moment here. You need to make sure that you are authentic to the audience that you're trying to reach.
Please make it inauthentic.
And the grassroots component with, again, like the FGC community is a key thing. Like when we even started up Valorant as an esport, we didn't start a professional league right off the start. We essentially went with the Ignition series as a way of understanding audience needs, the way that they would engage with the sport, and then built from there. And I think it's really critical as you go into this space, and again with an audience like there's a lot of entertainment options. It can be very temperamental to make sure that you are planning how you're going to engage them in test and find the right ways of adding value to their day-to-day. And then with it, they will essentially be coming back and become the advocates that you need.
So one thing, taking a question from the crowd, and we'll intersperse some questions from the crowd and some pre-planned question, is no one owns the sport of basketball. We've had folks from the Celtics, we have had folks from the Rams. No one owns the sport of football, whether it's American or European. Yet someone owns League of Legends, right? How does that create complexities from the brand side or from the team operator side that's unique, and how do you explain that to the brands that like, oh, you can't do these things?
I mean, Riot can take their ball and go home anytime and shutter league, right? Like we build our businesses as teams based on the IP of somebody else, so it's their discretion. I think a lot of times when we have grievances with Riot, or not just us but other teams, some people put their frustrations out on the internet. Like we fight with Riot all the time, but we do it privately because I feel like that gets more accomplished. But we try to be better partners with them when we are having those disagreements about format or scheduling or the amount of things we have to do at Worlds for this content series. But it's at the end of the day, it's up to them. So if people are still playing the game, I hope they keep doing esports. But yeah, it's a risk that teams take. But you do want to diversify to a point. But right now, we haven't seen any other publisher doing the things on the global scale that Riot's doing to warrant investing in their games. But yeah, it's a big risk for teams.
Yeah, I mean, for us, Riot is the closest thing from a publisher standpoint to the NBA, to the NFL, the way they operate, the way they put on global events. And we have our hands in both. We sponsor teams and we sponsor the league. The league allows us to drive scale, create priceless experiences, great experiences at events. The leagues allow us to get into some of the content, some of the influencers, some of the personalities. And in fact, it's allowed us to launch the MasterCard Gamer Academy, which was just announced in November. We just announced our participants last week. And it is a program that's fostering inclusivity in gaming. It's designed to create more opportunities, 10 participants. We had 1,700 applicants try to apply to this program. We picked 10. We're going to roll out all the content for free on Priceless.com. And it allows participants who may want to be a shoutcaster, a content creator, an esports pro, the business side of it, to really learn from a team, learn from the best. And they're going to go under a 9-month curriculum. They're going to get a chance to go to some of the biggest events in the world, League of Legends World Finals, Valorant World Championship, some of the headquarters of G2 Esports in Europe. So we have our hand very much in both the team element and the league. They're very complementary components.
Now you have all these investments interspersed across the league, the Gamer Academy with teams. How do you measure ROI? How do you know this is working and go back to senior leadership and say, you know what, we should double down. We were in league, let's go into Valorant.
Yeah, so from an ROI standpoint, looking at how many credit cards we've issued, just literally credit cards, we have, I think, 16 global MasterCard passion cards using the League of Legends IP that's been issued, which has been really successful out there. That's obviously a big ROI. Number two is we've also partnered with something like 40 to 45 different issuer partners around the globe, running spend and win campaigns, running campaigns leveraging some of the digital goods in the game. So they're highly interested. It's not only just producing a physical card. We've created amateur tournaments with some banks in certain markets that are loosely tied to kind of the Riot IP. So the interest among our customers remains really, really strong, and that is very, very helpful.
Awesome. How do you use data to report back to your brands? You have this arguably the strongest roster of brands, brand partners in all of esports. What sort of measurement do they expect, or how do they qualify so that when you go to renew, it's an easy conversation?
I mean, I kind of follow the traditional Western sports model. We have an agency that evaluates all of our partnerships, and they get semi-annual reports to see where they're at. But it's not just those reports. A lot of the brands have specific initiatives that they want to achieve with partnering with T1. So it's not so much about we're giving you X dollars and I need this many impressions. It's they have a campaign that they're trying to reach, or they're having a new initiative. And Korea is much different, from my experience than America was, because you're dealing at the local level. Like everything is very local, and it's very much how you take care of your partners. I had to teach my staff that if you're going to the contract and the letter of the law, that's not a partnership. You have to be flexible. That's the outline. When things are bad and you start breaking out the contract, and then they're probably not going to renew. So it's easier to get a sponsor and a partner and then grow that partnership versus getting one giant payout and then never having them again. So we try to do evaluations. We try to give them unique experiences, letting them come to our HQ, some of our VIP events with our players. We did T1 Con the past 2 years where we did our live ticketed event. We're going to have a tour this year where we're actually going to go to different countries with our guys. So we went to Germany last year with Red Bull. So we're trying to do things outside of the walls of Korea because we do only have 2 international events every year with Riot. So we'd love for more of a reach there. So we're kind of doing it on our own until something changes in our ecosystem.
I will say, when you host an issuer, a bank, at the T1 headquarters versus a boardroom in a hotel, and there's trophies and there's jerseys and there's content and there's like an air hockey table. Like, it is really, really impactful. And like executives from a bank who maybe have never seen an esports event are like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this is like a really true, authentic thing. And we just hosted a couple of meetings at their headquarters in Korea, and really lasting effects, and really made a lasting impression.
One of the benefits of Faker is he has a body friend deal. It's like massage chairs.
Wait, what?
So there's like 4 of them in like the lounge where they were hosting their meeting. His lounge chair, his massage chairs, because he likes to rest and recoup. He's got like 4 chairs. My favorite one's the Captain America themed chair he has. So it's great.
These chairs aren't them?
No.
Okay. Now, we saw an influx, going back to the esports winter, we saw an influx of traditional sports teams diving in, right? It hasn't been like the best marriage in terms of like integrating, whether you see Golden Guardians or anything else, but you guys kind of have a recipe that you're cooking up. Why hasn't this like sports and esports thing really worked? And then secondarily, like, we think Madden's pretty big. A lot of people play Madden, but it hasn't really translated, 2 different questions, into a compelling esport. Why or why not? It'd be interesting to get everyone's take on this.
I mean, for us, owned by Comcast, we own the Philadelphia Flyers. It's worked for us, but it's worked for us because we went to Korea. We kind of saw the landscape of the market. We wanted to get into League of Legends. Everything was franchised at that point. Korea wasn't. All the best players seem to be from Korea, so we went out there and kind of went east versus trying to stay west. I think where you've seen some of the things go wrong, I think league franchising has not gone as everyone probably thought back in 2017. And teams from traditional sports were probably sold, hey, this is just like the NFL, this is just like the NBA, come do this, and it's not. We don't have media rights deals. There's, it's tough to build a brand. So I think that's why you've seen it kind of not be the best, but teams that have kind of put a different spin on it, that have put the work in, tried something different, not try to be a traditional sports team, but with an esports team, those have kind of thrived.
Doug, on the Madden point, and I'm not asking you to shit talk anyone, right? But like, why hasn't that traditional sports gaming element translated in a dramatically compelling way? What is it about League of Legends that makes it like so unique and special that makes it a great esport?
So in the broad spectrum of things, I think first and foremost, like, you need a game that is compelling to be an esport before anything else. And trying to take a game that is not able to have those thousands and thousands of hours of mastery that someone can get into, that has, you can create that pinnacle of competition around, makes it really challenging to be a long-running esport, because you're just not able to make it so that it is aspirational to go there. And it's hard to also then to differentiate levels of skill where, with a sport like League of Legends, you can, right? Like, it's similar to, in a way, on the traditional sports side, if you're looking at basketball, people can be playing pickup basketball at home and it's great, like, it's fine, but they can then watch the TV and see, oh, there's Michael Jordan, there's the greatest player of all time. That is something different, right? And I think, like, you need a game that can first and foremost do that. And then 2, you need to, again, develop an ecosystem around it where that is a thing that audience wants. And so if you're looking at a League of Legends versus other game titles, you need to think about how are you best serving that community and what's necessary to serve it. And for us, the esport and the competitive angle has been, again, part of the DNA of the game itself. And so with it, it made it easy for us to invest more into it and to help that be a way for our players to kind of come together as a community. Again, that's not the right thing for all game titles. There's other ways of being able to engage with them and find the right touch points. But for us, it's one of the kind of key components of our.
And you have a 5v5 format. It's very similar to a basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Your mid laner, your jungler, everybody has a position on the court and has a certain skill set. So you work together as a team, and that's really good.
And just to talk about like a different angle of this, right? Like, we just had our first major TFT event in Vegas this past December, our TFT Vegas Open. Completely different format, completely different focus. It was very tied into the community. It was not aimed at being a major broadcast spectacle, because that game doesn't need that. That game, it needs to be a place where those people can come together, compete, and like go cheer on their friends that they came to the event with, and have it be much more grassroots, low-key style. And like it was a phenomenal event. It's actually one of my favorite esports events I've been to in the last few years. But again, you need to make sure that you're designing the thing to service the fan needs first and foremost.
Well, also too, like traditional sports games, they're based off of real people. So like if you want to see, LeBron James play, you go watch him on TV. With the lore of a video game, that's Garen, which is my favorite champion who can't do anything, but you want that. That's a different. It's not real life. Like you can go into that lore, and it's much more nuanced versus you're playing as Ronaldo or Messi. Like that's a real person that you can watch and see in person and pay a ticket to go to a stadium, and it's just a different feeling when it's a real person versus kind of the land of imagination.
It's more attainable aspiration, I think is a good way of putting it, right? You're not going to be the next LeBron James or Steph Curry. Chances are you're not. But in the world of Runeterra, in the world of Valorant, like it's attainable aspiration.
Yeah, it's interesting because that attainable aspiration, it feels like the players, the community, are more kind of serving towards the fans, right? You can drop into a lobby and be playing conceivably with one of the best players, but you're never just going to pick a basketball with Steph, right? How does that get leveraged with you guys or anything else?
I mean, it's part of their, like you said, when our guys stream, they have streaming hours every month and they're in a regular queue in Korea, you have a chance to play with Faker. I mean, like you said, you can't just go play a pickup game with the best players in the world and there he is in your queue. Now, how you treat him in the game and what you do in that game is two different things, but it's a unique experience. So, in some of our partnerships that we have, part of their deal points is the ability to play some games with the guys. Because it's a unique opportunity to be by greatness. And someone like Faker, who's been an awesome ambassador for Riot's games, I think you couldn't ask for a better superstar in that sense that he's very selfless and he's always looking to improve, and at 27 years old is winning a 4th championship and still trying to get better. It creates a unique atmosphere that you don't see in traditional sports.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with kind of the streaming part of it. So when you're watching an NBA game, it's still very linear. Most likely you're watching it on your TV. You might be watching on your phone or tablet, but you're not talking in the comments and the chats with an NBA player during the game. When you're watching the League of Legends World Finals, there could be a former pro, a famous streamer that's also streaming the game on their own personal Twitch channel, and you're having one-on-one dialogue with that person in the comments. It's just a more cooler, authentic viewing experience.
Yeah, we always looked at it as, you talk about millennials, there's studies about how hard it is to engage with them, right? They're turning off traditional means and they're largely becoming apathetic to advertising, yet there are thousands upon thousands of comments, right? Somehow, esports and gaming, with their favorite players streaming, they're engaged, right? And I think that's a huge barrier to entry that esports can cross. I think we have time for one more question. And the question comes from the perspective of revenue is a hot topic. How do you create more revenue, right? The team has a perspective on what the league can do. The league has a perspective how do we start to generate more revenue into the ecosystem so that, the idea of TV rights deals don't have to rely upon them because they're not going to come. Doug, go. Thanks.
I think there's a couple different angles to this that I think are really interesting to explore because, as you mentioned, the platforms where the content lives, how you engage with the fan is a very different forum than the traditional side, where you can look at, I'm going to take essentially these games, I'm going to split it up across these providers, I'm going to have exclusivity, I'm going to allow them to do sponsorship advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So some of those pathways are still kind of, again, critical to your leagues and to your teams. And then you need to also look at, again, how can you activate those types of relationships in other forums? Again, like a lot of the examples that we've kind of talked about today, the part that I think becomes more interesting and that is a thing to explore is how do you also go directly to the fan and allow the fan to support the ecosystem? Because it being primarily via virtual mechanisms, you don't have the gate revenue, the concessions, the other factors that, from a sporting perspective, you can lean into alongside the media rights. And so for us, I think there's a lot of opportunity to go there. Again, it's about building the right type of experience that allows that fan to engage. So looking at the social features, the way that they can interact with the pros, the way that they could, again, take what they're seeing on screen, bring it back to the game. All of those provide opportunities to be able to monetize in a way that is beneficial to all the parties, but also provides value to the fans that they actually want, that it's not essentially, just being predatory. So it's a key thing, I think, for us as an ecosystem to really be looking at right now as we think about the future.
I think we're almost over time. Joe, what do you want Doug to do? We're in a safe space.
I think from the team perspective, digital goods is the most important factor, especially for a team like T1, where if you gave me an Azir skin and we split it 50-50, it could probably fund and then some my roster. But I think having a marketplace style like CSGO does, where there's opportunities to have those goods forever and trade them, it's unique. And then also, allowing more tentpole style events, doing a regional based, preseason or get rid of spring split in general and do more international events and let us sell into those. Leave us some inventory in game for your partners and ours as well, as long as they're non-competitive, of course. But try something different. It's all digital anyway, so if we break it, we can unwind it and try again.
Okay, you heard it here. Spring split's going away. Take it to the bank. No, joking. Really appreciate everyone's time. We'll stick around if there are any other questions, but thanks everyone. Thank you, the panelists.